Jake was just an ordinary guy. He worked at a small grocery store in the city. He lived alone, liked quiet evenings, and never got into trouble. Life was boring, but safe. He walked the same road every evening to go home, passing the same crosswalk, the same streetlight, and the same small park nearby. One evening, something strange happened. The sun had set, and the streetlights glowed a soft orange. The wind was cool, and the road was empty. Jake reached the crosswalk, waiting for the green signal, and that's when he saw it. A strange figure stood on the other side of the street. It looked hurt, walking slowly with a limp. At first, Jake thought it was just an old man or someone in a costume. But as it stepped into the light, he froze. The figure was not human. It was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that shimmered like water. Its eyes were large and dark, and its clothes looked torn and burnt. One arm hung uselessly at its side, and it limped badly on one leg. No one else was around, and cars just sped past it like they couldn't even see it. Jake's heart beat faster. "Is this an alien?" he whispered to himself. He looked left and right, but there were no cameras, no crowds, no signs that this was a trick or a movie shoot. It was real. The alien tried to cross, but a car rushed by, honking loudly. It stumbled back, clearly scared. Jake didn't think, he just acted. He ran across the road and held out his hand. "Hey, it's okay, I'll help you," he said softly. The alien looked at him, surprised, then slowly reached out its hand. It was cold and smooth, like glass. Jake gently held it and walked the alien across the street step by step, careful not to rush. Once they reached the other side, the alien looked into Jake's eyes. It didn't speak, but something passed between them like a message without words. Then the alien raised its good arm and touched Jake's hand, right in the center of his palm. A strange warmth spread through Jake's body. He gasped, feeling something burn into his skin, not painful but powerful. When he looked at his hand, there was a small glowing symbol there, round with lines like a star map. He looked up, but the alien was gone. Vanished without a sound. Jake stood alone under the streetlight, breathing hard, staring at his glowing hand. What just happened?" he whispered. He ran home, locking his door, still shaking. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept looking at his hand, the mark still there, glowing faintly in the dark. He searched online for anything like it. Alien. Signs, star maps, symbols, but found nothing. Around 3 a.m. he finally fell asleep. But the dreams were not normal. He saw stars moving, forming shapes and words in a language he didn't know. He saw tall alien figures standing in a circle, pointing at him, calling him the One. He woke up sweating, heart racing. The next day things got even weirder. His phone started acting strange, screens flashing, apps opening by themselves. One message appeared in glowing letters he didn't recognize, but somehow understood. "You have been seen," it said. He turned off his phone, scared. At work, machines broke down when he got near. The cash register sparked and the lights flickered. His coworkers joked that he had bad luck energy. But Jake knew it was more than that. When he walked past, street signs, they sometimes changed, just for a second, to symbols like the one on his hand. At night, he saw stars outside his window shift into patterns that matched his dreams. Jake tried to stay calm. "I just helped someone cross the street," he told himself, but it wasn't someone. It was something. He didn't know it yet. But far away in the deep cold of space, powerful beings were watching. The Council of Stars had felt the mark awaken. A message echoed across galaxies. The Chosen has made the first move. Back on Earth, Jake sat alone in his room, hand glowing, dreams growing stranger. He had no idea his life was no longer ordinary. The galaxy had noticed him, and it would never forget. Jake sat on his bed, staring at the glowing mark on his palm. The room was dark, but the symbol on his hand gave off a soft blue light. It felt warm, not hot, but alive, like it was watching him. He had tried to wash it off, scratch it, even cover it with paint. Nothing worked. He didn't tell anyone. Who would believe? That he helped a real alien cross the street? That now some strange mark was burned into his skin? Even Jake wasn't sure it had really happened, but things around him were changing fast. He couldn't sleep more than a few hours. Every time he closed his eyes, dreams came. Not dreams, visions. He saw places he'd never been. Worlds with purple skies and floating cities, stars forming shapes and voices whispering words he didn't understand. On the third night, he had the worst dream yet. He was standing on a cliff in space, no ground below him, only stars. In front of him stood the same alien he helped but now dressed in silver armor. The alien pointed at his hand and said, "You are the spark," then pushed him off the cliff. Jake woke up screaming, gasping for air. His heart raced, his hand, glowing bright blue like fire. The mark pulsed like a heartbeat. He ran to the mirror, his eyes, just for a second, flashed silver. He backed away in shock, shaking his head. "Nope, no way, this is crazy," he muttered. "I'm just a normal guy, I don't want any of this." Suddenly, his phone lit up. The screen cracked and glowed bright. A voice came out, not from the speakers, but from inside his head. "Awakened, confirmed, tracking begins." Before Jake could react, his entire room began to shift. The walls melted into stars, the ceiling vanished, and space opened around him. But he was still in his room, half here, half somewhere else. He floated for a moment, weightless. Then everything snapped back, his heart thudded, he fell to the floor, breathing hard. Then came a knock on the door. Not the front door. The closet door. Jake stood up slowly. "Hello?" he said, voice shaking. No reply. He grabbed a baseball bat and opened the door. There was nothing inside except clothes, but behind the clothes was a hole, not a normal hole. It shimmered like water in the air. A portal. A small robot floated out, shaped like a silver ball with wings. It scanned Jake and beeped. "Identity matched, Earth human, marked," it said in a soft, robotic voice. Jake backed away. "What are you? What do you want?" "I am Observer Unit 3A, sent by the Galactic Council," the robot replied. "You have been chosen by an act of compassion, the rite of crossing." "Wait, what?" Jake asked. "You helped a wounded council seer cross a danger zone," the robot explained. "Your kindness activated an ancient code. Now the universe watches." Jake blinked, trying to process the words. "This is a joke, right?" "Negative," said the robot. "You are now registered as a potential guardian of balance." Before he could argue, the robot turned and flew back into the glowing hole. Jake hesitated. He didn't want to follow it. He didn't want to go through some portal into space. But then his hand burned again. The mark pulsed and pulled him forward like a magnet. He took one deep breath and stepped through. The world spun, twisted, and exploded with light. When he opened his eyes, he stood in a huge chamber. Alien statues lined the walls, tall and glowing with strange energy. The ceiling looked like a moving galaxy, and in the center floated a platform. The same robot hovered beside him. "This is the Hall of Recognition," it said. "Few humans have ever entered." On the platform stood a circle of tall aliens, their faces hidden by glowing masks. One of them raised a hand and pointed at Jake. "He is untrained," it said in a deep, echoing voice. "He is human," another said. That race was banned from the trials. Jake felt cold all over. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew one thing. There was no going back now. "You may not want this role," the robot whispered, "but the stars have already chosen you." Jake looked at his glowing hand, then at the council. Of alien figures, his mouth was dry, but his voice was steady. "What do I have to do?" he asked. The lights in the chamber flared, and a deep hum filled the air. The council had heard him, and the trials were about to begin. Jake stood in silence inside the Hall of Recognition. The alien council surrounded him, their glowing masks cold and unreadable. He felt like an animal at a zoo, being stared at by beings far above him. He wanted to run, but the door behind him had disappeared. There was no way back, only forward. A deep voice echoed across the chamber. "Earth human," it said. "You have been marked by a rite older than memory. You have shown compassion, a trait feared and honored. You will now leave the planet of your birth and begin the journey. Jake blinked, confused. What journey? I didn't sign up for anything. The robot beside him, Observer Unit 3A, floated forward. The journey is not a choice, it said softly. The moment you helped the seer, you stepped into galactic law. To refuse now is to cause imbalance. Jake opened his mouth to protest, but something inside him stopped him. Maybe it was fear or maybe curiosity. He looked down at his hand, the glowing mark now pulsing like a heartbeat. It felt like it was calling him somewhere, far beyond Earth. Where? Am I going? He asked finally. The robot spun in the air, wings humming. To the forgotten sky station, it said, an old place hidden in deep space where only the chosen may enter. You must reach it before others reach you. Jake didn't, like that last part. Others? Yes, the robot replied. Not everyone wants the chosen to rise again. Suddenly, the floor beneath him cracked open. A circular platform rose from the ground, and golden light surrounded him. The council spoke one final time. Go now, human, into the black sky. May your choices protect or destroy us all. There was a blinding flash, and Jake vanished. He reappeared in a dark chamber, cold and silent. Before him stood a strange pod, shaped like a tear, floating in the air. It looked like a spaceship, but not like anything he'd seen in movies. It had no buttons, no screens, just smooth metal and a seat in the center. Enter, the robot said. This is a Wayfinder ship, ancient and bonded only to the chosen. Jake stepped inside slowly, his heart pounding. As soon as he sat, the mark on his hand touched the control seat. Suddenly, the ship came to life. Stars appeared all around him, inside the pod, like he was floating in open space. Whoa, Jake whispered, his breath fogging the air. I'm really doing this. The ship shook, then launched upward with no sound. The stars stretched like lines, and the earth shrank behind him. Within seconds, they were in deep space. It was beautiful and terrifying. The robot floated beside him, protected by a small energy field. The forgotten sky station lies in Sector Thal V, it said, but we are not alone. As if on cue, red lights flashed inside the pod. A map showed another ship behind them, moving fast. Hostile vessel detected, the ship's voice said. They are tracking the chosen. Jake panicked. I don't know how to fight. I'm not a space soldier. You don't need weapons, the robot replied. You need trust. The ship responds to your mind. The enemy ship fired a blast. Bright blue energy shot through space, Jake screamed. But the Wayfinder moved on its own, spinning and dodging with ease. Jake focused, thinking about escape, about hiding. The ship listened. Turning invisible in seconds, the chasing ship flew past, missing them entirely. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. That was close, he said. They traveled for what felt like hours. Jake watched planets pass by, saw gas giants with glowing rings. He felt small, but also important. He was part of something big, even if he didn't understand it yet. Finally, the robot beeped. We're here, it said. Ahead was a massive station, floating alone in darkness. It looked broken, ancient, but still alive. Lights blinked slowly on its surface like a heartbeat. The forgotten sky station, the robot said. No chosen has entered in over 10,000 Earth years. The ship docked and the pod opened. Jake stepped out onto a cold metal floor. His mark glowed brighter, lighting the path ahead. As he walked forward, the walls lit up with glowing blue symbols. Strange whispers filled the air, voices from the past. Then from the shadows, a figure stepped forward. It wasn't a robot or alien, it was human. Jake froze. Who are you? The figure smiled. I've been waiting, the man said. You are not the first chosen, but you might be the last. Jake stared at the human standing before him. The man looked weathered, his beard silver and his eyes deep like they had seen many stars. He wore an old spacesuit patched in several places, and on his hand was a faded mark. It looked like Jake's, only older, worn, but still glowing. "I'm called Elias," the man said slowly. "I was once chosen, like you." Jake took a step back, unsure if he was dreaming again. You're human." "Yes," Elias nodded. "From Earth, long before your time." "How is that possible?" Jake asked, confused. "The Forgotten Sky Station," Elias replied. "It doesn't follow time the way Earth does. Minutes. Here could be years there or the other way around." Jake's mind spun. All of this, aliens, space, glowing marks, was already too much. Now there were time loops and ancient humans. "I don't understand any of this," Jake whispered. "You don't need to." "Not yet," Elias said, walking deeper into the station. "But you do need to survive." Jake followed him through dark halls that lit up as they walked. The lights followed his mark, like it was guiding the way. Old alien machines turned on. Watching him with blinking eyes, Elias led him to a chamber with walls covered in strange carvings. "This is the trial room," he said. "Every chosen must pass the tests to awaken the true path." "What kind of tests?" Jake asked, his voice nervous. "Not tests of strength," Elias replied. "Tests of your heart, your choices, your fear. Only those who understand others can guide the galaxy." Before Jake could respond, the floor shook. The walls began to move and the chamber changed. In seconds, he was no longer in a metal room, he was in a jungle. He looked around confused. Trees stretched tall with glowing leaves. Alien birds flew in circles and strange creatures watched from the shadows. Elias was gone. "Jake," a voice whispered from behind him. He turned quickly. It was his mother, standing under a tree smiling, but she had died years ago. "This isn't real," he said, backing away. His hand started to glow and the jungle flickered like a glitch. The image of his mother turned into something else. A creature. Using her face, Jake closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "This is the test," he whispered. He opened his eyes and walked past the illusion. The creature screamed, then vanished in smoke. Suddenly, he was on a cliff, watching Earth from far away. A voice asked, "Would you return to safety or face danger for the unknown?" Jake looked at the planet, then at the stars. "I already left safety," he said. "I have to see this through." The scene changed again. This time, he was back on Earth, walking past a limping alien, just like before. But people around him yelled, "Ignore it. It's not your problem." He hesitated. Then he stepped forward and helped the alien cross again. The moment he did, light exploded around him. The jungle, the cliff, the crowd all disappeared. He was back in the chamber on his knees, breathing hard. Elias stood nearby, watching with approval. "You passed," Elias said. "You faced fear, desire, and pressure and chose kindness each time." Jake stood up slowly. "That was terrifying," he admitted. "Good," Elias said. "It means it was real." Suddenly the walls shook, but this time not from illusions. An alarm rang across the station, red lights flashing. The robot observer, Unit 3A, appeared in a beam of light. "Hostile ship approaching," it warned. "Armed forces preparing to breach the station." Jake turned to Elias. "Why are they after me?" "Because not everyone wants peace," Elias replied. "Some species want war, and the Chosen threatens that." Jake felt a fire grow inside him. "I won't run again," he said. Elias smiled. "Then you're ready for the next step." He walked to a wall and placed his hand on a symbol. A hidden panel opened, revealing a small cube, metallic, glowing, humming with energy. "This is a memory core," Elias said, handing it to Jake. "It holds the lost history of Earth's role in the galaxy." Jake took it, and the mark on his hand lit up like fire. Images rushed into his mind. Ancient humans flying through space, making peace, fighting evil, helping the weak. He saw a time when Earth was not small but strong, wise and respected. Tears filled his eyes. "We were heroes," he whispered. "And we can be again," Elias said. The walls rumbled louder. An explosion shook the station. Jake turned toward the exit. The enemy was here, and they were coming fast. But this time, he was not afraid. He had passed the trials, carried the truth, and knew who he was. Jake, the human who helped a stranger and became the chosen of the stars. The warship shook as it entered the protected zone near the Galactic Council. Jake stood inside the Wayfinder ship, the memory core clutched tightly in his hand. Beside him floated Observer Unit 3A, silent for once. Elias had stayed behind to delay the enemy, giving Jake a chance to reach the council. Jake stared at the stars outside the window. They looked calm, but his heart beat fast. He was about to face the most powerful beings in the galaxy, creatures who could destroy entire planets with a single command. And here he was, a simple human, carrying memories from a forgotten Earth. The ship slowed as it neared a giant space structure. It wasn't like any station Jake had seen before. It floated like a moon, shaped like a black crystal with rings of light spinning slowly around it. The Council's home, known only as the Core. The ship docked without noise. As Jake stepped out, he was met by tall figures wearing robes made of starlight. Their faces were hidden by masks that shimmered and changed shape. They said nothing, only gestured for him to follow. He walked through silent halls lined with glowing symbols. The air felt heavy, like the walls themselves were watching. They led him to a large chamber with no ceiling, just open sky filled with stars. 12 beings sat in a circle, floating above the ground. Earth human, one of them said in a voice, like thunder. You are called here because you bear the mark of the chosen. Jake stepped forward, trying not to show fear. I didn't ask for this, he said, but I won't run from it. Another figure spoke. You carry a memory, core, an artifact long lost. Jake nodded, holding it up. It showed me the truth, he said. Earth was once part of the stars. We helped others, we fought beside you. Then something happened and we were forgotten. The council members whispered to one another in a language Jake didn't know. Finally, one of them asked, Why do you think you were chosen? Jake thought for a moment. I helped someone who was in pain, he said. Not because I wanted power or reward. I just did what felt right. The chamber was silent. Then a new voice echoed, cold and sharp. Compassion is weakness. Everyone turned. A tall, armored alien stepped into the chamber, not part of the council. His armor was dark red, his eyes burning like fire. I am Commander Karen of the Targ Dominion, he said. This human must not be allowed to continue. Karen, one of the council members, said, This is not your place. This is everyone's place, Karen growled. You know what happens when a human becomes chosen. Wars follow. Jake stood firm. I don't want war, he said. I want to understand why Earth was cast out. I want to know why we were erased. Suddenly, the core in his hand glowed. A beam of light shot from it, hitting the floor in front of the council. A shape began to form, a figure made of light and code. It looked human, dressed in armor with stars on its chest. I am Archive Prime, the figure said. I was created by the last Earth Guardian before Earth was cut off from the stars. The council stared in silence. The human speaks the truth, Archive Prime continued. Earth was betrayed, not weak. They chose peace, and for that they were targeted. Jake looked at the council. You erased us because we chose kindness? Because we didn't want to join your wars? Some members looked away, others lowered their heads. Archive Prime stepped closer to Jake. You are not the first chosen, it said, but you are the first to come back. Commander Karen raised his weapon. This is a lie, he shouted. Earth must remain forgotten. Jake raised his glowing hand. The mark shone like a star. The memory core rose into the air, pulsing with ancient energy. Archive Prime looked at Jake and said, If you accept, the knowledge and power of the old Guardians will awaken. But there is no turning back. Jake looked around the chamber. He had come so far. He had seen the truth, felt the fear, passed the trials. Now he stood at the edge of history. I accept, he said. The light from the core shot into his chest. His eyes glowed. The mark burned like fire. Symbols danced around him, forming armor of light. The council stood in silence. Even Commander Karen backed away, his weapon shaking. The Chosen had returned, and the stars would never forget again. The council chamber shook violently. A deep alarm echoed through the air, cold and metallic. Outside the crystal walls, ships appeared. Dozens of them, dark and sharp like daggers in the void. The Targ Dominion had arrived. Jake stood at the center of the glowing circle. The memory core now fused into his chest. His body felt warm and light, like he had become more than just human. Energy moved under his skin like electricity. But he had no time to understand it. Danger was already here. Commander Karen raised his hand, and a hologram appeared. It showed the Targ fleet circling the council structure like predators ready to strike. "They will not wait for debate," Karen said coldly. "They will fire." "You brought this war," one council member said, turning to Jake. "He is not the one who fires the weapons," Archive Prime answered, its light form flickering. Beside Jake, he only carries the truth. Another explosion shook the chamber, the lights flickered, and defense systems activated across the station. Blue shields formed around the outer rings, but they were already taking hits. "They're trying to erase the truth," Jake said, stepping forward. "They're afraid of what I've seen, afraid of what Earth once was." He turned to the council. "You have to let me fight not just for Earth, but for every voice that's been silenced." "You do not know how," a counselor warned. "I'll learn," Jake said. "Show me how." Archive Prime raised its hand. The glowing armor around Jake expanded, forming a helmet of light and wings made of energy. "You carry the Guardian Seed," it said. "You are now connected to the Echo Network." Instantly, Jake felt his mind stretch beyond the chamber. He saw through the walls, through the ships, through space itself. He could sense each ship, each pulse of energy, each life aboard those war machines. He focused on a command ship at the front of the Targ fleet. With a thought, he sent a signal through the Echo Network. The ship's weapons flickered and powered. "Down confused by the ancient tech, it's working," he said, breathing hard. "But I can't do this alone." The chamber opened behind him, revealing a fleet of old Guardian ships, sleek, silver, and silent for thousands of years. They hovered in place, waiting. "Those are Earth's ships," a counselor whispered. "Thought destroyed." They slept, like Earth slept. Archive Prime said, waiting for a voice to wake them. Jake stepped toward the launch bay. "I'll be that voice." He entered the largest ship, the command vessel called Soulborn. It lit up with warm, golden light as he sat in the captain's seat. The controls didn't need hands, just thought. He focused, and the engines hummed to life. One by one, the Guardian ships followed, rising into formation. Outside, the Targ fleet began firing again. Beams of red light tore through the darkness, striking the station's shields. Jake narrowed his eyes. "We defend, but we don't destroy," he said to Archive Prime. "We show them who we were, and who we still are." The Guardian fleet surged forward, fast and silent. They moved like a single mind, bending around enemy fire, protecting the council from every side. The Targ ships fired again, but this time the Guardian shields absorbed the hits and redirected. The energy, Jake used it to disable enemy engines, not kill. His ships didn't fire to destroy, but to stop, to defend, to prove a point. Across the galaxy, thousands watched through broadcasts. They saw the forgotten power of Earth rise again, not as conquerors but as protectors. The story of the human who helped a limping alien was spreading, and now he stood at the front of a glowing fleet. On the bridge, Jake saw one last incoming missile, this one aimed at the council's core. He reached out with his mind, heart pounding. "I won't let you fall," he whispered. The missile froze mid-space, stopped by an invisible wall. It dropped harmlessly and vanished in a shimmer of light. Silence returned to the stars. The Targ ships pulled back, confused, defeated not by violence but by unity and power they didn't understand. Inside the council chamber, the lights calmed. One of the members stood and removed her mask. She had silver eyes and a soft smile. "You did what many of us could not," she said. You led with restraint, not fear. Jake removed his helmet, breathing slowly. I'm not a hero, he said. I'm just a guy who helped someone cross the street. Archive Prime hovered beside him. And that, it said, is exactly why you were chosen. The stars were calm again. The Guardian fleet returned to its silent orbit, floating peacefully around the Council's black crystal station. The war had been stopped, not with fire, but with faith, and at the heart of it all stood one human. Jake. He walked slowly through the golden halls of the Council, still wearing the glowing armor of the Guardians. The memory core pulsed quietly in his chest, no longer hot, just steady. Observer Unit 3A hovered beside him. Quiet for once, aliens from all across the galaxy had gathered outside the Council Tower. News had spread like light through space, not about a battle, but about a decision. A human had returned to the stars, not to rule but to guide. Inside the Grand Hall, the Council stood waiting. This time there were no masks, one by one. The members had removed them, showing their true faces, not as gods, but as beings willing to change. You've earned your place among us, said one counselor with golden eyes. You may lead the Guardians, awaken Earth's legacy, bring the stars back into balance. Jake looked at them, then at his glowing hand. He saw flashes of what could be. Fleets under his control, power in his voice, worlds ready to follow. But that wasn't who he was. He thought back to that one moment. On Earth, a simple evening, a limping stranger, a quiet decision to help. He turned to the Council, his voice calm. I don't want to rule, he said. I came here by accident and stayed because it felt right. But Earth doesn't need a king. It needs to remember who it is. The Council was silent, watching him closely. So what will you do? Asked another member. Jake smiled. I want to go home, he said. Not to hide, but to share what I've learned. To prepare the next one, because I won't be the last. Archive Prime appeared beside him, glowing brighter than ever. The Guardian seed will remain within you, it said. You may step away from the stars, but the stars will never forget you. Outside, as Jake walked toward his ship, crowds from many species bowed their heads, not out of fear, but respect. They had seen what true strength looked like, not in battle, but in mercy. As Jake's ship lifted off, heading back toward Earth, a voice echoed through the Council halls. Let it be recorded that the one called Jake of Earth walked into the stars, changed nothing, and changed everything. 3 months later, Earth Jake sat in the park where it had all begun. The streetlight glowed softly, and people walked by without knowing the history of that place. He watched quietly as an old man struggled to carry his bag across the street. Before he could stand up, a young girl rushed forward and helped him. She smiled, he thanked her, and they both walked on. Jake smiled too. On his hand, the mark still glowed, hidden under his sleeve. Not bright, but alive. The Guardian seed inside him slept, watching, waiting. At night, he still dreamed. But now the dreams were peaceful. He saw stars. Yes, but he also saw Earth rising again. Young people looking up, asking questions, building new things, drawing new paths. One morning, Jake received a signal on his old phone. It was scrambled, alien symbols flashing across the screen, but he understood the message clearly. Another had been marked. A child on a distant planet had shown kindness to a creature in need. The seed had awakened again. Jake stood by the window watching the sunrise. He knew his part was over, but the story was just beginning. Later that year, a small statue appeared in the center of the Galactic Council's garden. It was simple, just a figure helping another cross a road. No armor, no crown, no weapons, just 2 hands. Reaching out, a plaque below it read,